So here is the second paragraph that talks about linguistics. Now this happened to be one area that suddenly became relatively popular in the CAT, and then the number of passages sort of dropped down. But it's very interesting. I mean, this can be considered a subject matter that does feature continually in the CAT. So if it is not a part of RC, it is going to pop up somewhere in your paragraph based questions here or there. So very interesting. So the passage starts off by introducing us to an assertion of Danny Heber, and that is, tracing the oldest language is a deceptively complicated task. And then he goes ahead and tells you one way of determining whether a language is the oldest or not. So you just go back in time and then look at that. Then there is an alternate suggested, that you assume that there was an original language, so all the languages will trace back. But then you cannot really prove the existence of a proto-human language, and therefore some linguists move towards languages that have a well-established written record. Then we are introduced to the scripts that have a written record in the next paragraph, and then we say that, hey, if you go back further still, here is somebody who says that we had Sanskrit, but then the next paragraph and the one thereafter talks about it, but then you also had Tamil. So all of these things of ways and challenges in which you can determine which language is the oldest is basically traced in this particular passage. So let's start with question number 5. Which of the following statements reflects the author's opinion? So let's start with A. Sanskrit is probably the world's oldest continuous language. This was something that is attributed to Patel, not to the author. B. People fabricate history. This is again last paragraph, something that comes out from what Patel has said. C. Tracing the world's oldest language may appear simple, but it is actually a difficult task. That's where the paragraph started. But when the paragraph started, it quoted a man called Heber. I hope I'm getting the name right. But if you go to the first paragraph, you'd notice, yes, Danny Heber. So that it is Heber's opinion. D. It is impossible to prove the existence of a universal language that was the precursor of all language. Now that is something that the author has said at the beginning of the third paragraph. This is something that has not been attributed to anyone else. So if we are talking about author's opinion, well, it's very clearly going to be option D. So question number 5, answer is D. Let's have a look at 6th. None of the following statements can be inferred except. So none and except get cancelled. We are looking for something that can be inferred. So let's see. One of the oldest written languages is Arabic. The oldest written languages were the ones that had cuneiform script, right? So they talk about Sumerian, Akkadian, Egyptian. Arabic was not talked as the oldest written language. So this is false. Sumerian and Akkadian are among the oldest languages that are still spoken. Oh, they were some of the oldest written languages. Are they still spoken? Can't say. C. The world's oldest language title seems to confer some sort of stature to the community that speaks it. True. That's where the passage ends. In fact, this is something that we can infer from the last paragraph. People create alternate histories which they are political and cultural, not just scientific, because they want bragging rights. Remember that part? So C is 2. D. Tracing the ages of ancient languages can be considered as a clear and pellucid task. False. Clear and pellucid here would actually be that it's an easy job, but the passage repeatedly tells us that it is not an easy job, and therefore I think it is clear that if you're looking for what can be inferred, the answer has to be option C. Here is the next one. Each of the following statements is untrue except. So this un and except get cancelled. We are looking for something that is true. Option A, a new language originates when two dialects of the same language begin to diverge, become. This is something that can be termed true on the basis of the second paragraph. most linguists agree. No, the passage actually says that some linguists propose it. So to call it most will be a stretch, and therefore we should label it as can't say. See, ancient languages with written records are easier to trace than purely oral languages. This is something that the passage has not mentioned anywhere, and therefore even C is can't say. How about D? The change in inflection between two dialects. Okay, inflection is the way you speak. Inflection is the change in where you stress the words, the change in your intonation, those kind of things. So intonations, stresses, they're in pronunciation, these are not themes that have been picked up by this particular passage, and therefore D is also going to be can't say or cannot be determined, and therefore our answer for question number 7 is going to be option A. And with that, let's dive into our 8th, the last question based on the passage. What is the main inference that can be drawn from the second paragraph? Now, if I jog your memory, the second paragraph talked about assume that all languages come from an original universal human language, so all the languages are old. So they just asked us to engage in a mental exercise. Think your parents spoke a language, their parents spoke a language, and so forth. So eventually you'd intuitively feel or sense that all the languages have come from the same origin. So let's see. So if I look at A, all languages are not equally old. This is something that is going to be irrelevant to the second paragraph, and therefore we should call it can't say. If I look at B, our earliest ancestors did not know or use language. This can demonstratively be termed false on the basis of the second paragraph, because we are being asked that, hey, your parents spoke a language, their parents spoke a language, and so forth. So you intuitively be able to grasp a universal language. So can't say. All languages originated from a single source. That is the main point put forth by the second paragraph. And how about D? Languages sprang from different sources. This contradicts the second paragraph. The second paragraph says that, hey, there was one common universal language at the beginning. So even this can be termed false, and therefore our answer to question number 8 is going to be option C. So that takes care of our second passage from mock 60.